way. My computer is doing funny things, so hopefully that won't ripple out to the Zoom meeting. But I have these things like, I'm just weird, like connecting to the cloud or whatever. Now I did just get this laptop back from being repaired, so I've had to keep adding passwords for it to do things. So who knows, what's going on. So
you have a MacBook, right?
Yeah. The battery swelled. It's trying to escape from the keyboard. So what can I tell you? It's happening to my tablet as well. And now the screen's just lifting off, and it's the second time for the tablet. In technology. Oh, well. Oh.
Yeah, it's not like a common thing I've heard of happening.
I keep it plugged in too much. It gets hot, and then it just, and it doesn't need to be plugged in all the time. So I'm learning. I'm becoming much more, whatever. But still, it's my technology karma, so I'm not holding my breath. So, all right. So we've been talking about the 8 pillars of joy, what His Holiness and Archbishop Desmond Tutu said they felt that, what composed of joy. And so, what habits do we need to develop in order to have more joy in our lives, to be able to recognize the opportunity for that quality of mind that is content, that's not consumed in that moment with fear or what if or what's next or what was, but just the opportunities that can be there. And so there's certain, so we started by talking about perspective, that perspective makes a difference, that we know if we bring with ourselves an attitude of closed-mindedness, that prevents us from seeing opportunities. We know if we think we're the only important person in the universe, that also can become an obstacle to opportunities. And then we started talking about how humility plays a part, that understanding that allowing that humbleness, allowing ourselves to recognize the skills or the of others, of the universe, whatever it is, this ability to be comfortable with limitations and lack of knowing, and just being, hearing someone else speak, or seeing someone else's shine, however we all shine, and really taking that in, and not coming from a perspective of comparison. So we're going to look a little more at the humility and how pride and how to work on that today. So take I know some of you have just joined us. So for those of you who were at the meditation, take a moment to refresh your motivation, to remember why you show up to class. And for those who are just joining us, do the same. Take a moment to really feel your body sitting here, your mind in this present activity. Just ground yourself, anchor yourself in what you're doing right now. And that can be supported by just bringing your attention to your breath going in and out of the body. and letting thoughts just pass through the mind like clouds in the sky. And allow your motivation, your reasoning for showing up this morning to bubble up. And using that reasoning, generate an intention to use your time well. And when you feel ready, we can recite the four measurables to really make this more about all of us, not just one individual. May all sentient beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. And may all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. So how are people thinking about, did anybody think about humility this week or perspective this week?
I thought about it in the negative sense of the lack of humility, and especially what I viewed in some of our leaders in this country.
So you were judging others? Is that what you mean?
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say that because I recognize some of those instances in myself as well. What I'm recognizing is the potential destructiveness that it has on others.
Pride? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what, this is part of the process, isn't it? Is recognizing, the Buddha said pride, afflicted pride, is the last thing we're willing to let go of. We invest an awful lot into our opinion of ourselves and what we perceive to be others' opinions of us, and that this, of course, its root is self-grasping, going, oh, me, and thinking our happiness is all about validation of this me, that it's all about, what is the word? I'm always trying to pampering or comforting or supporting this me, And so the Buddha's challenging us to say, well, actually, if we let, loose, our grip on this importance of me, it provides conditions and opportunities, to have more joy, have less suffering, that the obstacle is grasping at the self-importance of me. And this can extend beyond the me to the mine. You know, my family, my job, my car, you know, all the things, you know, that we include. And this changes from moment to moment, but those things that we include in that moment of me and mine. Yes, Margaret.
One of the things that I thought about this past week was, and I've heard this, you know, some time ago, that humility involves not thinking less of yourself, but thinking of yourself less.
I like that. I like that. So humility is not thinking less of yourself, just thinking of yourself less.
Yeah.
I like that, because that's exactly right. The teachings aren't saying that somehow we are less than and that we need to understand that. That's not it at all. It's that all of us, all sentient beings, are equal. And that means we can learn from all sentient beings. No, it means that there's nothing inherently negative about limitations. That it's just reasonable. It's part of what, you know, being dependent means. Just everything depends. So whether we're, you know, able to do certain things or anything, our ability to do anything depends on having conditions to learn that thing. Having the body, you know, function to be able to do that thing. Having a teacher to teach us that thing. You know, it's all dependent. And so some of us have, you know, the conditions to learn how to do this and that in childhood, like, you know, and they're born with an affinity for language or music or art. I guess music's an art. I don't know. I've never understood how to make these divisions, but, you know, your ability to do arithmetic and higher mathematics is dependent on conditions to learn those skills. We don't arrive independent. There isn't this self that is established from the moment of conception. It just doesn't exist like that. We don't exist like that. It's a dependent arising. Whether we make it through, you know, the womb is a dependent arising. No.
But aren't we also somewhat responsible for our own actions?
That's one of those things that we can create our conditions for. I mean, that's the thing. We're one of the conditions. Our actions is one of the, or, you know, can be causes. Our willingness to say, study can be one of the conditions of learning. Also, you know, it's all of these things. We're not separate from the causes and conditions. We are one of them. But we're not one alone. You know, it's countless. So it's like the number of drops of water in a waterfall. You know, think about how many conditions must exist for a waterfall to take place, to exist? And over time, how much time is involved? And we're exactly like that. We're as impermanent as a waterfall. We change, just like a waterfall changes. We don't do anything alone. That's a perspective we have. We think we are independent, self-sufficient, unitary, autonomous. And none of that's true. It's just not true at all. And our perspective of thinking that way really narrows our options, our experiences. So part of humility is being able to step back, you know, at any given moment and recognize, you know, I'm not alone here. I didn't achieve this by myself. I'm not the only one who counts. I'm okay with limitations. You know, that the limitations are also a result of causes and conditions. If we change our causes and conditions, we can become limitless, like an enlightened being. But even an enlightened being can't get us there without our effort. It's interdependent. Part of humility is this recognition that we're vulnerable, that we have limits, that we don't know it all. And really understanding, making this distinction between, say, like pride and confidence. You know, so when we talk about pride as being a delusion, as an affliction, as a disturbing emotion, you know, the Buddha's talking about afflicted pride. He's not talking about confidence. There's nothing wrong with being confident of the skills you have. You know, or being confident that you can learn new skills. What do you think is the one of the, you know, what are the differences between pride and confidence as I'm using them?
Pride is inaccurate.
Yes? Why is it inaccurate?
It's like either like I'm too good or I'm too bad, but it's not like see it just as it is, like I'm all right at this thing.
Yeah, so it's this, it's like you said, it's an exaggeration on either end of the spectrum, depending on what direction we're going, you know? And what is its basis of, you know, what are we using as the basis for pride?
Our ignorance?
Our ignorance, the self-grasping ignorance, and also, you know, what is at the root of it? It's a comparison, isn't it? Pride. What is it comparing? What's the basis for comparison?
Me and you.
Yeah, someone else. You know? Now, is it accurate to say that, that there's going to be a difference in skill level between me and you on anything? That you'll never have a moment where you're exactly in the same place, in the same skill level as someone else. Okay, so what do we do with that? How does that inform us? What are the different perspectives we can take on that fact?
Other people always have something to offer. I mean, it's always good to listen. Somebody always has a different perspective in a different way. Other people always have stuff to offer.
Well, what about the comparison you're making with pride? What is pride? What is one of the faulty components of pride?
That you're judging others.
Or yourself.
And yourself. I think one of the differences between pride and confidence for me is that confidence is, practice, repetition, and you're building your own confidence by learning that you can do something. Like when you learn how to cook, you make one bad meal, try again, you make a meal that's good, and then it builds your confidence that you can do it again.
Okay. And what is pride?
It's subjective. It's based on how you compare to others and making someone less than you to build yourself up.
Okay. And so, like Paul said at the beginning, it's inaccurate, And so what is, what is the assumption there with pride? What is the need there? Why do we bother? Why do we do it?
Ego, the need to, I guess, build ourselves up instead of accepting our limitations. I'm not entirely sure.
Right. And so why do we think happiness exists there?
Because you're inflating your ego, to think that you're better than someone else or the best.
There we go. So we think being best is part of happiness. Excuse me.
Could I share something?
Sure.
There was a time when I was in therapy and I had a very wise therapist. It was a time when I couldn't be my own therapist. But one of the things he taught me was the difference between false pride and real pride, with achievement. And that's
what I consider confidence, yes.
Been helpful for me to use that label of false pride, throughout the years. It differentiates.
Well, that's right. And so that's why I make a distinction between pride and confidence. That pride, as it's used in Buddhism, is talking about an inaccurate state. So you can look at it as afflicted pride. So to distinguish from pride, or confidence, so it's there's nothing wrong with confidence. We need to feel confident. The Buddha's saying we need to know that we can become enlightened. Yes, Bobby.
I always got a kick out of the saying, in pride, there's nothing to be proud of.
Yep. It's like, what Benjamin Franklin, said, I know I'm not, I don't have humility because I'd be proud of it. That it's just, so we have to, so we all have a sense of the difference, right, between pride and confidence. We can talk about it. We can talk a good game about it, but doesn't interfere in our lives? Do we actually internalize the reality of afflicted pride's inaccuracy? Or do we still, when we walk into a room of people, still sit around judging them in our minds, comparing ourselves to them and either deciding we're the winner or we're not, we're the loser?
I do that all day long, every day.
Yeah, this is a habit, isn't it, for many of us? So we need to take what we intellectually get about how pride is this really false, or this, I'll try to stick with afflicted pride, that this habit of mind increases our suffering. It's not a skill that leads to happiness. And it's a skill, it's a habit that actually prevents recognizing opportunities for joy. So Nicole, can you break us up into groups and try to make sure everybody's in a group? And is there something people can do if they end up with no people in their group to come back to the meeting and do something?
I'll be more mindful of it. Sorry, that was my fault. And how many people in each group would you like?
3, 4? What do people think?
3 to 4? Okay.
And of course, Veronica, Robert count as 2. Not that you can do that. I'm just being funny.
Okay, and for 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Sounds good. And what do you want them to discuss?
What did I just say?
I was focusing on the room, so I wasn't listening, sorry.
Cecilia, were you listening? Graziella, help, help. Polly, do you remember what we were just talking about?
The difference between pride and
It's
yeah.
Okay, so we want to look at, discuss how is it that we can intellectually know this, but yet, still continue constantly judging others, as a way to either, validate our self-importance or undermine ourselves. So what can we, how can we bridge that disconnect? Does that sound like a question that you can discuss? Okay.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. So everyone will have to click on join the room once it pops up.
And you'll put a timer in there somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I do the timer on my own side, and then it gives Hi, Margaret. So, Margaret, you there? Hi, Jean, are you there? One, two, three. 1, 2, 3. Hi, Rebecca. Sorry. I noticed you popped in.
Hey, Nicole,
Hey.
Brian can't get in. Brian he can't get in. I mean,
So Brian should have. I mean, he just had to click join a room.
He's in.
Moved him.
He's in.
Got in.
oh, is he in now?
Okay.
I just got in, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I think if you come late and if we didn't just start the groups, then I'll put you in. But otherwise, if it's like, only a few minutes left, then just wait. So, okay.
No, I mean, he couldn't get in at all to the whole class. Says everything worked fine on his end. It had nothing to do with the different rooms.
Well, it's because there was no class to join at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he's in. So.
Did I just join another room or what happened?
You're automatically sent back to the whole group.
Oh, okay. This is the
Yeah.
whole group. Okay.
This is the whole group.
All right. Happy to be in the whole group.
And so what did your conversations revolve around?
I want to share one that at least apply a lot to me, and it was a good lesson that I can be confident and skillful about something, but to be careful not to present it in a prideful way. And I like that.
Yeah. And that, I think that comes from humility. Our group was talking about that, the acceptance of our limitations, being comfortable with not being the best in every moment, not being this or that in any moment. Also, just the fact that, the conversation we're having in our head has nothing to do with what's happening. It's a story we're creating in our head. We haven't even gotten the chance to actually get to know the others that we're interacting with because we're too busy. So what helps with this? Like Cecilia's saying, that one thing that can help is to remember when we are confident that we don't have to be prideful about being confident, that we can twist our confidence into arrogance if we're not careful, of where we're trying to, or maybe it's not even arrogance, but we feel the need to show someone else that we're good at something, which just puts us back in that same trap of comparing ourselves to others and not accepting.
Yeah, we were discussing also one of the things that prevents us, even though we intellectually know it, from actually kind of living it, so to speak, but is sometimes not having fully developed mindful awareness or perspective, in terms of being able to catch ourselves when we're hooked, and to just stop, and kind of look at that situation.
Or just stop.
Yeah.
In that moment, just stop. Take a few breaths. And try to, come back to just being mindful with what's happening. Let go of the conversation in the head. And mindfulness can really help with this, of just going back to observing what's actually happening, listening to what words are actually being said. What body language are you observing? And just let go of the story you can create out of those pieces and just be there. It's like pausing long enough to, after someone said something, to decide what you're going to say in response, as opposed to thinking about that the whole time they're talking. Yes, Bobby.
Do you say that we're expressing pride because of originating from low self-esteem, wanting to prove?
Maybe. I think it depends. It may be a habit that we think that you have to boast in order to count, or you don't want anybody to not notice you're good at some things. I don't know. I think it just depends on your own habits of mind. You know, if you have a habit of constantly finding fault with yourself, you know, then, and sometimes what happens is when we're new with something, you know, like when we're just learning something, and then we finally, you know, meet a measure of success with it, you know, we want to celebrate. And that is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. We just need to be mindful if we are poisoning that joy or rejoicing in developing a skill, you know, with one of the afflictions, like wanting to be, you know, always perceived as competent. You know. And of course, it probably depends on the group we're with. Yes, Graziella.
Do you think that confidence and trust in yourself can sometimes be sort of could be on the edge, that could interfere with humility, unless it's maybe just about your intention?
Well, yeah, we have to check out, you know, like, first of all, we have to see, why do I need to share this information with anybody? You know, why, you know, we want to look at if we're using it as a way to feel better than or less than. That's the clue, because then we're not looking at it from just an assessment of skill. We're now using it as a marker of worth. And the Buddha said, we all have the potential to become enlightened. So is any of us worth more than anybody else? Is anybody worth less than anybody else?
Thank you.
Now, I would think it would be not only total disillusionment, but what a stressful thing to be dealing with, thinking that you know all the answers and that you're better than everyone and you know it all. I mean, that would be quite a burden to carry in my eyes.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we have, so sometimes when we're being aware of what's going on in our minds, it's really good when we recognize that, you know, that it is a burden to think that you're a Buddha yet already. If you're not a Buddha and you think you should always, you know, manifest your Buddhahood that doesn't exist yet. But it also gets at how we define things, what we think, you know, like, is an enlightened being, you know, humble? Yes, Robert, or Bianca, yes. Oh, almost.
Almost.
There you go.
Oh, there we go. Okay. No, it's interesting. What Marianne, is that what you just said? it's also, I think, even more of a board. Sometimes it's easier in a way to be delusional that you think you know more, because when you realize how little you do know, it's like never enough. Then you start beating yourself down for that, is you never, you know, I just want to add that, yeah.
Well,
Thank
see,
you.
that's a good point. And this is why afflicted pride can go in both directions. You can have the afflictive pride that holds on, grasps onto the idea that you're better than others. And you can have the afflicted pride that grasps onto the idea that you're worse than others. That you're, in fact, not just worse, you are the worst. So the problem here, this is what makes this an affliction, is the grasping at some fixed idea of ourselves. Whereas instead of recognizing that in any moment, you know, in a particular moment, we might be good at something or bad at something. I mean, we all have skills that on some days don't work for us at all. And the older you get, the more you discover them, you know? So it's about being, you know, it's about letting go of this habit of thinking it's important, thinking that your worth is dependent on what you know or what you can do, as opposed to just because you are. You're one being amongst countless beings, and we're all equally important. And that importance really isn't even the point. It's just, you know. So it's this interesting, this is, the challenge is trying to figure out how to stay open to what is in this moment. And we can't do that if we're in a constant state of comparison. Yes, Francesca. We need to unmute you.
Okay, you there?
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, this is interesting because I'm really grappling with this, with learning another language and being in a foreign country. And it really makes me realize how people feel when they come to our country, you know, how they may feel a little diminished and not, you know, not so intelligent. I mean, because you sound stupid, you know, you don't sound like you're, you know, getting across who you really are or your ideas, you know, and it's
and
hard
who
enough.
Are you really?
Yeah. So it's, who are you really? So, you know, it's so, I'm really grappling with how to handle that situation, being in a foreign country. And I really have more empathy now with people that come here and, you know, have to try to assimilate, you know, within our culture. And it's just like, it's really difficult for me to be in another country and feel muted, you know, feel like I can't express myself. And it makes me feel insecure. So the humbleness,
All
I'm
of
working.
this, yeah. Because everything you say is a habit of mind, isn't it?
Yeah.
So how can humility help?
That's what I'm working on. I'm really, and when I go there, I'm just, that's what, it's my main focus, is to be humble. I keep saying that to myself over and over again. Just learning, just being open to learning and not judge myself.
Or judge others.
Or judge others.
I think because part of this affliction, part of the delusion here is somehow our worth is dependent upon some result. You know, I don't want to look stupid. you know? Well, who decides you're looking stupid? How useful is that label?
It's not. It's really very nerve-wracking. You know, like when you think you're stupid and people don't know you, and you really you want to run. You know, you want to not be in that situation.
Yeah, and what is that aversion?
Pride.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pride. That's all it is. It is very difficult to overcome this habit. But you know what? What follows humility in this 8 pillars of joy, and I don't know if these are in any kind of order, but I find it very appropriate that the next one is humor. Because I find humor really helps with humility. Because when we really look, you know, like looking in the mirror going, you know, oh, I don't want to look stupid. How silly are we being? Do we think we never look stupid? You know, I mean, and what does that even mean? But I mean, really, I mean, it's like really hilarious how we all, you know, we want to present a certain, you know, look. Yesterday, I was leading a practice. The IMI, you know, the monks and nuns of the FPMT are doing these practices on Saturdays. And when it came to be my turn, the nuns at Chenrezig were also present, you know, and so I know these people. It's like I couldn't function. You know, my mouth wouldn't work right. And I said, you know, 2 long life prayers for His Holiness instead of, you know, I mean, you know, it's just how we do, you know. And it was just so hilarious because it was, you know, I mean, being able to just keep relaxing about, yeah, okay, here I go. Letting my anxiety screw up my speech. That's all right, you know. And then, and what's more important, how I look on YouTube or to my friends in, you know, Australia, or saying the prayers to benefit all these suffering sentient beings, you know. It's really about letting go. One of the things about humility that can help us is instead of worrying about our own importance or unimportance. Is that a word? Unimportance? Yeah. Okay. I'm not sure. But anyway, and focusing on the others. What can I give to others? What is this moment? What is this opportunity in this moment? And don't think about ourselves at all. You know, how can I be of benefit? How can I enjoy this moment? Whatever it is. I mean, it's just this, you know, looking at, ooh, what can I learn from this person? I read a thing, what did it say? It said it's instead of entering a room with the idea of, you know, here I am, instead walking into a room saying, oh, there you are. You know, just really changing the perspective. And then when we look at moments where we feel humbled by what is happening around us, you know, like if we're in the presence of some, you know, like I said with Susan Boyle, you know, listening to her, you know, the way she could sing, you know, and Simon Cowell's face going from, you know, rolling eye kind of face to being, you know, really in awe of her voice. Remembering that humility brings us this opportunity to experience joy, to experience something someone else is bringing to the table, to experience connection with someone else. If we're so busy with the judging conversation in our heads, we actually don't experience the other person. you know, and so we're missing out. And we do it, if we do it constantly, we're missing out a lot. And this is, again, where mindfulness can help us, you know, where we're mindful of what am I doing now? Where we're mindful of who's with me. When we're mindful of how do I want my life to have meaning? You know, it's that, you know, like who's the most important person in your life? The person you're with right now. You know, it's just really, instead of being so self-focused, allowing each moment to bring you more opportunity for connection, or say you're alone, you know? So, you know, gives you that opportunity. How can I best spend my time in order to make my life meaningful? And that takes a perspective, doesn't it? Because sometimes you have to clean the house. But you want to clean the house because you want, you know, to have a warm, welcoming, clean place for others to join you, or for your partner, you know, or you want to do it together as an activity just because. Or you can think in your mind, I'm cleaning the stains of my personality, all the habits of mine, all those judgments, you know, I'm going to scrub away these judgments of others. Because it's not enough to pause when we catch ourselves doing something unskillful. We need to replace that unskillfulness. And so we need to develop a habit. And so this is where reflecting on things when we're not in that moment, when we can think about, okay, how can I, you know, what can I do to help me not spend or waste my life in comparing myself with others and actually live my life with others? You know, so we want to think about these things, our unskillful habits, and how can we turn it around to develop a skillful habit?
It helps me to remember Buddhist ideas about compassion, about suffering.
Okay.
Where it's that self-grasping feelings, like a lot of what we've been talking about, that have to do with insecurity, fear, I'm not good enough, I can't learn this language in a week. That's part of the suffering of samsara, that we're all grasping, or we're not understanding reality. So it'll help you be a little kinder to yourself in your attempts to find another way, find another perspective, or, you know, alleviating the situation for yourself. And just think of what you would do if it were your own child in a foreign country, groping their way around and not knowing what to do and feeling afraid. You would comfort them and you would try to get them through it. So for me, it helps to keep those things in mind when these feelings get triggered, as they do all the time, you know. So anyway.
No, I think that's great advice, because that's the thing, isn't it? First, you know, this is that gentleness that we want to bring to our awareness, you know, so we don't want to have a harsh response to being aware that, oh, there I am judging or judging myself, comparing myself again, you know. I mean, I use humor because I do so many things repetitively, you know, and it becomes kind of funny. And that helps it lose its power. That habit has less power when I can laugh at it. It can also have less power if we're just compassionate towards ourselves. Oh yeah, I haven't learned how to speak Italian fluently. I studied French for 13 years. Can I speak it? No, not at all. I couldn't at the time. I just loved the sound of it, but I couldn't speak it. So it's, you know, it's just, okay. Yes, Beth, did you have your hand up? You're still muted. There you
Am
go.
I there? Okay, those math problems, better than, worse than, those are all made up problems. Nobody wants to sit around and do unnecessary made up math problems. If you just put it equal, you can just throw the whole damn thing away. And then I noticed, like with the judging, I was saying earlier in the group, I'm from New England. That judging harsh speech was like ingrained in me like a virtue. So I can go, oh, I'm really good at coming up with creative stories about people. So you know what? I'm gonna go, when I'm in traffic, I'm like, I bet that guy's like a really good neighbor. I bet he's a really good coworker. So I take all those things and try to find something good. And then when I'm in a room full of people, everything's like a treasure hunt.
I think that's really, I mean, this is just called rehearsing. So I find driving, especially if you get stuck in traffic, you know, is a great way to do it. Or anytime you're waiting is a great opportunity to practice thinking things differently. You know, so if you have a habit of, like Beth's saying, you know, of judging others in a negative way, then try to create stories with a positive spin about everybody. You know, because it just gets you in the habit of thinking that way. It's like if you have, you know, if you make yourself an agreement to, you know, that you are going to notice positive things about the people you live with, you know, and that you're going to share them with each other, then you start looking for them. You know, you start collecting little jewels. And this kind of practice helps us retrain our mind with a different skill. Having compassion every time we're disgusted with ourselves. You know, responding with that kind of feeling that washes over you like, yeah, you know, it's okay.
Joy has a question.
Oh, okay.
Hi. I just noticed that when you tell people that you're not good at anything, at something, like I do a lot of sports and I'm just not good. And when I say to somebody, I'm not good at that, they'll say, oh, you're going to get better. You're going to learn it. And I'll say, but I've been doing this for 5 years. And like people can't accept, it's not just one thing. It's like a lot of things that I do. And I accept that I'm just not going to get better. I try. But people don't seem to be able to accept when you say, and if it's not sports, it could be a lot of different things, like your French. Other people can't accept that. What do you think about that?
Well, it shows that habit, doesn't it? That we have this habit of thinking that telling someone that they're not limited will make them feel better.
I had the same thing that was really weird. Like when I got out of the hospital, like my leg was it was never gonna get better, and like people were like, "Well, when are you gonna get better?" I'm like, "It's not," and it like really upset people, and they were like, "Yes, it will." I'm like, "Talk to like 4 doctors. Like, what are you talking about?" Like people were like super upset about it. They would argue with me about it. You know, it was crazy. It was really weird.
So what do you think that reflects? What belief is that screaming? What is the other person grasping at?
The unwillingness to accept limitations.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That it's not okay to be bad at something. It's not okay to be limited. And of course, often though, they think they're comforting you because they are not accepting your self-judgment. And sometimes that's accurate, isn't it? Sometimes we are trashing ourselves and somebody else will say, you're not like that, you know? So we have to be discerning. We have to bring our wisdom. We have to get to know ourselves well enough to know when, you know, others are, you know, that we don't need the comfort of others telling us it's all going to be okay. You know, and maybe sometimes, you know, if they're good friends, we can ask them, I need you to support me in my process of accepting this change of ability or this limitation. You know? It's like, and we all have, you know, certain things that we're particularly aware of in ourselves, our limitations, and we're not comfortable with it. I'm very aware, particularly as a nun, that I can't chant, that I can't carry a tune, you know? And it's just something that like literally can make me feel just sick at the thought that I'm going to have to just do it anyway, you know? So we all have these areas that we feel particularly vulnerable in. And we can either stay stuck in feeling bad about it or reach out and be supported in that situation. And how do you do that? How do you get the support? You
ask.
You ask, which means what?
Being vulnerable and admitting that you cannot do it all, that you
Or
need help, you're needed.
Or admitting you can't even do this at all. So it's about being, you know, you have to reach this place of going, okay, I'm going to show you my vulnerability. And whether they, you know, are supportive or not, that's all right. I mean, that's one of the risks we take, isn't it? And so we just, you know, these kinds of experiences can inform us when we walk into a room of strangers, you know, of just realizing everybody has this. We think everybody is judging us. Why? Where's the proof of that?
Because we're judging them.
Yeah. Because we're
That's
constantly
human.
judging others. So surely they're judging us at the same time. What difference does it make when actually it's clear that you're not actually getting to know each other? So how accurate can that judgment be? And what is the judgment actually reflecting? What perspective is that judgment? Yes, Graciela. Please, sometimes you have to speak out because I'm not going to see your hand. You do have to, yeah.
Well, you know, when my tendency to judge others, I am thinking that I need protection. And so is my misguided or uninformed or, you know, unskilled way to try to protect myself.
So it's all about you.
Mm,
And so is their judgments.
mm,
And it's all related to you, to your idea of you, and your idea of how you compare to others. And that's the same with their judgments of you. It's not like anybody, unless they're enlightened, is walking around having a, you know, clear picture of you in their judgments. No, what they're doing is vocalizing in their head their fears, insecurities, their afflicted pride, whatever it is. It's all about them, just like it's all about us. So being worried about it is about as worth as much as our judgments of others. It's like, it's all a fabrication. because we haven't taken the time to actually get to know the others because we're too busy drawing conclusions, comparing them to ourselves, because after all, we're the most important person in the room. We just, really understand what we're missing out on. The more we're able to just be open to not knowing, I don't know what this moment's going to bring. I'm going to try not to assume anything. I'm going to just observe, experience, learn. So if you find that you are often harsh in your judgments towards others. Oh, Bianca, Robert, yes.
Hello, sorry. This is interesting. So the comparing and everything, I mean, I find myself, I don't do it as an elevation. I always, especially now, I guess I'm going through like a midlife crisis, and it's stuck like, oh, I should have done this, or why haven't I accomplished this? I never consider that as pride. It's interesting. I've been thinking this the whole time. That's pride as well? No,
yes.
Because it's not like, it's the opposite of not accomplishing. So how can that be pride? Wouldn't we happy? Okay.
We have to look at afflicted pride, okay?
Yeah. Okay.
So it's not the same as confidence, all right? Confidence is an accurate, this is just my definition, okay? So, but I'm using confidence in the way of which it is an accurate or realistic assessment of your ability in some arena, So you have confidence that you're able to read this book and understand it. You have confidence that you're able to look, and if you run across a word you don't know, you know how to look it up, those kinds of things. You have some confidence in some skill area. You're confident that you can drive a car safely, these kinds of things. Now, affliction, an afflicted view of oneself is where we feel like we have to compare our skills to someone else in order to either feel better than or to strengthen our idea that we're the worst. And it's inaccurate because it's either an exaggeration of us being better than or inferior to others. So the assumption here is that our worth, according, in the Buddha's idea, is that our worth is equal to others. Whether we have this skill set or not, whether we're good at this or not, that has nothing to do with our worth. So when we recognize we're not good at something, we can choose to try to learn to get better at it, or we can go, I don't have time to get better at that. Or I've been trying long enough, I'm going to abandon trying to get better at that, but I still enjoy doing it, so I'm going to keep doing it. I just will never get to the level of this I can't even, you say this is one of my things. I can't, I can't sound out words. So even though I've seen it in print a lot, virtuoso, is that it? Anyway, so it's just this, it's this separating our worth from our skills.
I just had trouble with the word pride, seeing it like this. So, because I thought pride was overinflated sense of, so it also means underinflated as well, I guess.
Well, the definition is strictly on the superior end.
Okay, yes, that's what I was confused about.
Yeah, but the reality is, when we grasp onto our view as being inferior than, we're doing the same thing, and they have different, they have sort of the same consequences. And that is that we're just caught up in ourselves. You know, we're not really understanding that our worth is just because we exist and how we interact and interdepend on others. You know, I mean, this is how we're valuable, you know. But if we're constantly in a place of having to feel worse than, because out of habit, or feeling better than, you know, there's nothing in there that is useful. It's not even accurate. And then what is it that we need from others? We need them to, you know, raise us up, you know, or squash us down. It's like, you know, is that really how you want to spend your life? You know, so just being comfortable with, okay, sometimes I have limitations. In fact, most of the time we have limitations. But so does everybody else. And yes, we may think, oh, won't it be grand if I was just naturally good at something? You know, wouldn't it be wonderful? You know, those people who, you know, can seem to, doesn't matter what it is, they can, you know, they can play tennis, they can ride a horse, they can do anything. And then, you know, you invite them to a skating rink and they can skate. They've never skated before, but they don't fall down every time. You think, well, the Buddha said the ability to do things like that comes from past positive actions. It's not some specialness, it's a result of a whole bunch of causes and conditions coming together in this life to make, you know, that is resulting in a skill. It's like people who are born with a beautiful voice or people born with a terrible voice. It's causes and conditions. And just like there's no reason for me to be ashamed of having a terrible voice, there's no reason to be proud of having a beautiful voice. We can be confident of our singing voice. We can be confident of our absence of a singing voice. Yes, Graziella.
What is the difference between being proud of our beautiful voice or being confident of our beautiful voice?
Afflicted, because for one thing, what did you do to earn a beautiful voice in this life?
Well, I imagine you would have worked very hard to, to develop this skill. I'm thinking, what did you do? Nothing, you inherited.
Nothing. So where's the pride part?
There's no reason for it.
Yeah. You know, it's good karma, right?
I see. And confident is you've worked very hard to develop this.
No, you just are aware of your skill. You may not have worked very hard. You may have been born with the ability, but you trust your ability. You have confidence in your ability. You don't take pride in it. You understand the difference? I know it's hard because semantics, it all depends on how we define it, but it's an attitude. You know, pride has this attitude of thinking that you're not equal to.
Superior.
Superior or inferior, that you're not equal. Confidence is just, I'm confident in my skill level with this. I know what it is. Or what it isn't. Like I'm very confident in my ability not to carry a tune.
Thank you.
You know?
So, Venerable Tendron, are you saying that the confidence is more of just an awareness of a fact or the way things are and not attaching any kind of judgment or emotion to it?
Well, it's wisdom. It's an accurate assessment of your skill, say. So it's not that you're attached to being better. I mean, it has nothing to do with being better. There's no comparison to others in it.
Okay. And by the way, your voice is not horrible. That's an extreme exaggeration.
I need that validation. I don't. Yeah, Robert.
I'm going to give it like an, I guess an extreme. Say some person, you know, whatever, my age or whatever, well, you know, late 40s. They didn't take care of their health. They abused drinking and I mean, I didn't do this, you know, but they abused drinking and drugging. I mean, just, you know, I just was fortunate I never. Anyways, and then they wake up and they just like, wow, like what I do with my life. So that's really not an exaggeration. So it's like it's comparing not so much with other, comparing what you could have been. I mean, that's a tough thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we have to face who we are and what we've done. You know, it's like when we are self-aware and we realize, man, I am just trashing that person in my head. You know, that's not a good quality. That's not a good habit. I think I need to change that. You know, anybody who's addicted finally reaches, you know, if they're going to recover from their addiction, be, you know, not be under the control of the substance they're addicted to, has to come to a point where they go, I'm out of control. And if I want to change this, I am going to have to stop using. That doesn't mean they're not worth anything.
No, but what I meant was, say they went through that, whatever they did, they're off of drugs and they're like, you know, you can't get time back in this life, right? And you say, man, I really, so it's like comparing so much with what you could have been, you know?
That's the same thing as afflicted pride. And it's like, no, we can't erase our past. That's a fact. You know, we have to live with it. We have to be humble. Say, oh, I've made mistakes. And some of my mistakes were big. You know, so what? No big deal. Everybody has mistakes in their past. And if they don't, it's because they've made progress in their habits of mind. It's not because it's magic or they're special. It's just a reflection of a result of past actions. You know, so there's nothing to be, you know, not have afflicted pride. No, you don't, there's no reason to feel superior. I don't think His Holiness the Dalai Lama feels superior to any of us. You know, he's just practiced developing compassion and wisdom, and is, you know, has the result of that. And this is where our self-compassion can come from, is that I'm stuck in some sorrow and I'm suffering. I need, you know, help learning some new habits because I'm experiencing the results of some negative habits. And that's okay. That's where we all are. Anybody who's stuck in some sorrow has got the same problem. You know, it just looks differently because we have different abilities ripening in this life. You know, so when we can look at ourselves from a balanced view, being gentle, understanding that we suffer, understanding we don't know it all, understanding we don't know how to do everything. In fact, some things we don't know at all. You know, but our worth, our value isn't dependent on those things. You know, according to the Buddha, we have all existed, but, you know, our mental continuum with the body that supports it has existed since beginningless time. We're not going anywhere. We're all part of existence. And what mark we want to leave in this life or the next life, you know, is helped or harmed by our habits of mind. Okay, it's 12:30. We can rest now. So we want to think about, you know, and I appreciate all your participation. It's wonderful when we interact. So we can rejoice, whatever your motivation was, take a moment to rejoice in having expended your effort in this way. And we can rejoice in each other's. You know? And we can rejoice in all the positive things that have been happening while we've been together doing this positive thing all around the world. And probably in other universes too. So then we want to make the wish that our positive efforts will result in positive ways in the world. So I will open our dedication prayers. And share with you. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled, with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. So do we have any announcements?
Yes, thank you, Venerable Tendron. Just a reminder that the link for today is the same link for the whole month of August, and there will be a new one for September. So keep track of those links, please. And then also in 2 weeks from yesterday, we start the self-empathy course on Saturdays at 10:30 a.m. to 12, led by Stephanie Bachman-Matai, who is the leader of the Nonviolent Communication workshop. And so if you're interested in joining that, it's a whole course, so you do have to come for the first one, and each one builds on the next. And there's more information on that to register on the website and the calendar. And then we have our usual schedule: Tuesdays, Bodhisattva's Way of Life, and Thursday, Samsara and Nirvana. And that's all I can think of.
Yeah. And so on Tuesdays, we're talking about the practice of equalizing and exchanging ourselves for others. Shantiteva is just like we just read the